Picture this: it's barely sunrise. The air's still heavy with that damp morning quiet. And my wife Sarah is standing in our driveway in pajama pants and slippers, staring down the self-appointed queen of Maple Ridge Estates. And by queen, I mean Karen Matthews' phone pressed to her ear, pearls gleaming, barking at a tow truck company about how Sarah's Honda Civic was an eyesore that needed to be hauled away. Yeah, you heard that right. A perfectly legal, registered, insured car parked in our own driveway was about to get dragged off because Karen decided it didn't fit her picture-perfect vision of suburbia. What Karen didn't know, though, was that she was about to pick a fight with the one person in the entire county who could make her life behind the wheel an absolute nightmare. Sarah wasn't just some random neighbor with a dented fender. She was the new director of the Department of Motor Vehicles, and Karen was seconds away from finding that out the hard way. We'd only been in Maple Ridge for 3 weeks. Fresh paint on the walls, boxes still stacked in the garage, and Sarah riding high from her promotion after 15 years grinding her way up the DMV ladder. We thought we'd finally found a little slice of peace. But you know how every neighborhood has that one person who treats the HOA handbook like the 10 Commandments? That was Karen. She introduced herself on day one, striding into our house like she owned the place, clipboard in hand, pink dress sharp enough to blind you in the sun, smile so fake you could hear the plastic crack. She didn't even wait for an invite. She marched right past me, clicking her heels across our hardwood like an auctioneer about to take bids on our furniture. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said, like she was already regretting it. And then out came the rules: grass no higher than 2 3/4 inches, garbage cans hidden like contraband, holiday decorations pre-approved by the architectural committee. Oh, and the kicker: all vehicles had to be aesthetically pleasing. Translation: if your car doesn't look like it just rolled off a dealership lot, prepare for war. Now, Sarah's Civic wasn't a luxury ride, sure, but that car had history. It carried her through grad school, through late nights at the office, through the kind of winters that chew up SUVs for breakfast. And it still purred like a cat. But Karen zeroed in on that faded paint and the little dent in the back like it was a personal insult. "Perhaps you could consider upgrading," she suggested, her voice dripping with superiority. Sarah just smiled tight, polite, and said no thanks. She loved her car. You could feel the temperature drop in the room. From then on, Karen made it her personal mission to break us. She walked past our house every day, eyes scanning for violations, muttering about our recycling bins being 3 inches off, our doormat not fitting the aesthetic. It was like living under surveillance. And then came that Tuesday morning. Sarah was rushing out for a big presentation. She was about to pitch a plan that could save the state millions in DMV efficiency costs, and she was still in her sweatpants, hair in a messy bun, planning to change once she got to the office. That's when we heard the shouting. Karen, in the driveway, pacing like a general, phone pressed tight, ordering a tow truck for an abandoned vehicle. She was talking about Sarah's car. I swear, I saw Sarah's face go from tired to ice-cold steel in about 2 seconds flat. She stepped outside, calm as could be, and said, "Excuse me, that's my car." "And Karen?" She looked her up and down, sneered, and said, "Obviously." Then she went off about how Sarah's car reflected her lifestyle choices. That's when our neighbor Bob wandered over, coffee mug in hand, eyebrows climbing his forehead like he was watching the opening scene of a soap opera. He tried to talk Karen down, but she was high on power, declaring the tow truck would be there in 20 minutes, and there was nothing we could do. Sure enough, the flatbed rolled in. The driver looked like a guy who'd seen it all, but even he seemed nervous when Karen started waving her stack of HOA bylaws in his face, shrieking about authority. The poor guy muttered something about needing paperwork, and Karen lost it. "I am the paperwork," she screeched. That's when Sarah stepped forward, and I swear, everything shifted. Gone was the tired woman in slippers. She suddenly carried this quiet authority that made the tow driver straighten up and Bob stop mid-sip. Sarah asked to see the documents, and when Karen shoved them at her, Sarah started reading them aloud, pointing out the fine print about disputes requiring local authority review. Then she looked Karen dead in the eye and said, "Do you know which department handles vehicle compliance in this county?" Karen opened her mouth, said, "Well, obviously the DMV," and stopped. That's when Sarah introduced her self-director of the Department of Motor Vehicles, holding up her phone with a digital inspection certificate for her Civic, complete with seals and signatures. You could have heard a pin drop. The tow truck driver backed away from the Civic like it was radioactive. Bob nearly dropped his coffee. And Karen? Her face went through every stage of grief in about 5 seconds: shock, panic, denial, you name it. "You're the DMV director?" she squeaked. Sarah nodded, cool as ice, and said she was happy to let this morning serve as an educational experience. But then Sarah twisted the knife. She mentioned Karen's BMW had been sitting in the fire lane all morning illegal, $200 fine, towable offense. And oh yeah, its registration was expired. I thought Karen might faint. The tow driver was biting his lip to keep from laughing, and Bob was openly gawking. Sarah gave Karen an outrenew your registration, move your car, and maybe we can start fresh as neighbors. Karen nodded so fast her pearls rattled, then bolted for her BMW like the asphalt was on fire. You'd think that would be the end, but the story had one more twist. That afternoon, Sarah came home grinning. "Guess who showed up in my office?" she said. Karen Matthews, in full humility mode, expired registration in hand, a bouquet of flowers, and the most awkward apology you've ever seen. She'd apparently spent the whole day Googling Sarah, realizing she wasn't just some bureaucrat, but the woman who'd modernized the DMV and cut wait times in half. By dinner, Karen was back at our door with a casserole, smiling like a hostage, babbling about how she wanted to nominate Sarah for a community award. And get this, she actually threw us a neighborhood welcome party, invited half the county, introduced Sarah to everyone as the DMV director, and even had the Civic detailed as a surprise. Suddenly, Karen wasn't the tyrant with the clipboard. She was a community cheerleader, apologizing to neighbors she'd terrorized for years, even admitting the Johnsons' garden gnomes were charming. These days, Maple Ridge feels like a different place. Karen still struts around in her pearls, but now she's organizing block parties instead of writing citations. Bob still tells the story of that morning like it's folklore, swearing it was the best cup of coffee of his life. And the tow truck driver? He waves every time he spots Sarah around town, telling anyone who'll listen about the day an HOA president got humbled by the DMV director. The moral? You never really know who you're messing with. Karen thought she was bullying some tired neighbor with a dented car, but she picked the wrong fight. And instead of crushing her, Sarah gave her a chance to change, and weirdly enough, she did. Not everyone deserves that grace, but sometimes the most satisfying win isn't revenge. It's watching a bully deflate and rebuild into someone better. Still, Sarah keeps her DMV credentials in her wallet, just in case the next HOA warrior decides to test their luck. So what do you think? Was Sarah right to give Karen a second chance? Or should she have slapped her with every fine in the book? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's hear your stories about neighborhood drama and justice.